Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good day. And this is the first time I think it's ever been used literally because you could be listening at any time um, during this quarantine period. The way that this is going to work is that I'm presenting the presentations that I normally would during regular class time, except it's all being recorded. Your job is to listen to the recordings, and then take notes just as you normally would. You can use your own paper or the template for the note taking that you can find on the Rosenworld website. Now, I'm doing this at an ad hoc basis. Um, I'm not doing this professionally, and it's my very first time trying the software and doing it as I'm doing it. I probably will get better as time goes by. I hope I don't miss any pages or am obscure, but I will do the best that I can. So let us then begin with the first look for the Chapter 4 material, interdependence and the gains from trade. We are beginning with the first part today, which is markets and completion. Yeah, and that should be competition, I think. And then we'll also be looking at supply as well. So let us just begin. The textbook begins with a question on what is a market, and we had covered markets earlier before, and normally I would ask you if you had any thoughts, but you can do this quietly by yourself. Let me then continue by giving you the full dictionary definition, and you can see it right in front of you. Market is an actual or nominal place where forces of demand and supply operate, and where buyers and sellers interact directly or through intermediaries to trade goods, services, or contracts or instruments for money or barter. Markets include mechanisms or means for one, determining the price of the traded items, second, communicating the price information, third, facilitating deals and transitions, and fourth, affecting distribution. The market for a particular item is made up of existing and potential customers who need it and have the ability and willingness to pay for it. Now that's pretty long. A more simplified example of definition is a group of buyers and sellers of a particular good or service. So let's just explore some different markets that are out there. The first is financial markets. And these are large-scale platforms of financial exchange like stocks, bonds, derivative commodities, money markets, things that you haven't learned about yet. The photograph in front of you shows the New York Stock Exchange, which is a market for stocks. Today it's going down, so don't go there. There are stock markets all over the world. You can find them in places like London, Tokyo, South Africa, and so forth. Another type of market is the reinsurance market, and these are markets for insurance companies to themselves buy insurance, and this is a way to transfer risk. So if you have a life insurance for 1 million people, and suddenly there's I don't know, a virus that goes around and kills them, you might want to have insurance for that. I think it's too late now. I am drinking coffee, so live with it. Another one is something that you are familiar with nowadays, and it's come about in the last 10 years, and that's crowdfunding. And that allows people to pitch projects, ventures, to ask for money for life crises like funerals or lack of mortgage payments. And it's calling for the community to raise the funds. And the last of the examples I'll give you is something that most of you are familiar with, that of the farmers market. Here in Cerritos, we have this, and these are physical locations used to sell agricultural products directly to consumers. Now, this is just the tip of a very, very large iceberg, so don't think this is all that there is, of course. Now, with markets comes the concept of competition, and that brings to the question, what is a competitive market? So give that one a few seconds of thought. You can even pause the video if you'd like. So let me define it. A competitive market is a market in which there are so many buyers and so many sellers that each has a negligible impact on the market price. That is to say, each buyer knows that there are several sellers from which to choose. Sellers know that each buyer purchases only a small amount of the total amount sold. And for the purpose of this lesson, we're going to assume that markets are perfectly competitive. Now, if we're looking at a competitive market and want to look at its characteristics, it includes the goods being offered for sale are exactly the same. The buyers and the sellers are so numerous that no single buyer or seller has any influence over the market price. Now, because buyers and sellers must accept the price as given, they're often called price takers. Now, in the real world, not all goods are sold in a perfectly competitive market. A market in which only one seller is there is called a monopoly marker. And there's the monopoly man right there to remind you of it. But some markets fall between perfect competition and a monopoly. So we'll start by studying perfect competition, the situation prevailing in a market in which buyers and sellers are so numerous and well informed that all elements of monopoly are absent, and the market price of a commodity is beyond the control of individual buyers and sellers. And that's that for that section. Boom. We'll move on to a longer section on demand. Let's get started. And there's another definition, the demand curve. And as you can see, the amount of a good that buyers are willing and able to purchase. Now, what do you think is the most major determinant of quantity demanded for a good, whether it be shoes or automobiles, houses, or pencils? Usually it's some kid in the back who gets this answer. And you know the answer. No, you don't. I guess not. The price of things, of course. Now, since economists see themselves as scientists, they put all of this into some simple mathematical formulas. Behold, the demand schedule. Okay, let's not use this demand schedule here. Instead, we'll use one from, you can find it on page 66. You can see that the demand schedule is a table that shows the relationship between the price of a good and the quantity demanded. And naturally, all this information can easily put on a graph. So we can see here, for example, if the price of the ice cream cone was zero, people would demand 12 cones. If it was $1.50, they would have 6 people demanding it. And if it goes to $3, that would be considered way too much, and no one would want to buy it. So we can put this all in a graph called, wait for it, the demand curve. So let's use your textbook example. Here is the demand scheduled for the ice cream cones that I showed you just a few moments ago. With the price drawn on the vertical axis and quantity demanded represented on the horizontal axis, you can see how we can easily plug in the different values in the graph. A line is drawn to connect the data, easy peasy. You can easily see the relationship between the price of the cone and the quantity of ice cream cones demanded, even for data that is not represented in the original demand schedule. In this case, a decrease in prices results in an increase in the quantity of cones demanded. All of this is drawn on the demand curve, which often really is curved, but is often a straight line. Try it yourself. Here's a demand schedule for pencils. Write up a demand curve in your notes based on this data, and it should take no time at all. Just pause the video and do what you can and come back. Welcome back. Well, hopefully, with all of that clear, we can move on to get a few new terms and concepts. In this case, market demand versus individual demand. This boils down to what everyone in a specific market demands. For example,